You're not lost. You're not on the wrong path. You're not directionless. Perhaps you're actually growing. Lately, I've been going through what I would describe, or I've now come to learn, are growing pains. And in the process of all of that, I've been learning a lot of lessons about what it really means to grow, what it really means to make progress, right? And this is something that is a lot of years in the making, like really learning this is you have to start looking at all the different ways that growth shows up in your life. And every time I find myself back in this cycle, I am drawn to the metaphor of planting and seeds and what that represents. Because the planting of a seed represents like many different phases in life and many different stages of personal growth that a person can go through right over the course of their life. It's a cycle of being planted, of survival, of being broken, of rebirth, all in the potential to continuously come out as something greater, something bigger, even though that bigger thing was in the smaller thing at the very beginning, right? It takes that process to bring out the result, the thing that you end up seeing, the tree, for example, right? Say you plant a seed, everything that the seed goes through in order to become the tree, it had to go through it. There was no bypassing the process. There was no skipping the process. And I especially love going back to that particular metaphor as it relates to us as human beings, because seeds, just like us, are complex, and seeds are different from seeds. So the amount of time it'll take one seed to grow into what it's supposed to grow into is different from what it would take another seed to grow into whatever that seed is going to grow into, because they are different seeds. Their paces are different, their pace of growth are different because they both need different things and they both come out to be different things. More importantly, they yield very different fruits. So you would never find a farmer treating every seed the same because he knows that they are different. They need different things, right? And in relating that back to ourselves, you need something different. You, the seed, whatever it is that you're doing, you're trying to do your entire life, you need something very, very different. So a huge part of you getting to really giving yourself what you need, or at least like asking the right questions to find out what exactly you need, is knowing, going into the process, knowing that sure, you can take inspiration from wherever you want to take inspiration from, but your journey is going to look different because what is in you is different. What you're supposed to yield is different. It might look very similar to someone else's thing, but your journey is going to be different. Your pace is going to be different. What you need is going to be different. You are unique in your own way, right? And seeking that out is part of the journey. That is part of the process. That is one of the things that you will learn in the process. And I think that's why we go through these cycles. That's why we go through these different phases, right? You go through one, you learn what you're supposed to learn, then you find yourself back at the beginning of another cycle. And sometimes it's to learn the exact same lesson, but other times it's to learn the lesson at a different level, to come into a deeper knowing of the thing. That is one of the things that I've learned so much from that metaphor. Like it gives and gives and gives and gives and gives over time. So when you hear the phrase trust the process, it's a cliche, right? We've heard it multiple times, but it is a cliche because it's true. It's a tried and true thing in multiple people's lives over time. You have to trust the process. But what does it mean to trust the process? Especially when things seem really slow, especially when it seems like nothing is happening, especially when nothing is happening and when you feel lost. It can be very difficult to trust the process, but you have to trust that just because you can't see anything doesn't mean you're not growing. It doesn't mean anything isn't happening, right? No one needed to hear this more than me today. This is the same thing that I was reminded today, and I just felt like it really brought me back to center, and I wanted to share that with you. Because what is more important than asking, when will it come? When will I get there, is who am I becoming? Changing that question, letting that be the central question that you're asking instead of when is it coming? When is it coming? When am I going to get there? Wherever it is that you want to go, who am I becoming is always going to bring you back to why you're doing what you're doing. And it's always going to help you refocus, because whatever journey you're on, whether it is the journey of learning to becoming something, breaking a habit, building a business, like developing yourself creatively, developing yourself personally, whatever that is, there are going to be lulls. There are going to be moments when like you won't always feel the high of inspiration. You won't always remember when you started. It's normal. It's a human thing, right? We go through those processes. So having something that will pull you back to why you're doing the thing that you're doing and help you not get distracted, or help you stop fixating on things that don't matter, like other people's journeys, for example, or why you're not seeing outcomes, is very, very important. And this rings particularly true when you are either learning a new lesson, in a new phase of what you're doing, or at the beginning of whatever it is that you're doing, right? And the reason why it is really hard for us is because the beginning process of everything that you want to do is asking a lot of you. It asks a lot of you, and understanding what exactly is being asked of you, or what is being brought out of you in that journey that you're in is really helpful. And for me, it's a guiding light to really focus on what exactly is being asked of me in this moment, instead of woe is me, all my actions are not yielding any results, all my actions are not being rewarded in a way, right? Asking what is required of you in that moment, what you're supposed to learn, can be one of the most life-changing things that will ever happen for you. Because if you're starting something, unless you're starting out on an already huge platform, whenever you're at the beginning process of something, you are both the audience and the performer. There's a very good chance that you are starting from scratch. So there's no external validation because it's you. You are both the person creating the thing. And at the very beginning, it can feel like you're the only person there to consume the thing. Or at least, you don't have the numbers. So you're comparing your numbers to someone else's numbers. And that right there, that situation is teaching you to practice loving and holding yourself despite the outcome. Because if you're embarking on a journey, then you're embarking on a journey for what you want to do, right? Not because of any of the accolades that you want to get. So consider it a plus that at the very beginning, you're being given the opportunity to really love what you're doing because of the thing in and of itself, because you enjoy doing the thing. That is a blessing, because if you get to the point where you love what you're doing and you did it when there was no one watching, when people do start watching, you will know deep within yourself that you're not doing it for that. You won't be as dependent on that. I can say for a fact that you won't be dependent on it at all, because validation feels good, accolades feel good, applause feels good, right? It feels good to get recognition, but you don't want to be dependent on it, right? Every artist, everyone who has ever done anything worth doing will tell you that the world is a very unreliable source for both praise and critique, right? If they lift you up, then they can tear you down. That's what they say. So you don't want to be dependent on that. So if you're not getting all of that at the beginning, it may not be the terrible thing that you consider it to be, right? It is calling you to practice doing it for yourself, showing up for yourself when no one else is watching. The second thing that I think is that it's asking for your willingness to surrender, which is very, very difficult. I think most of us love being in control, or at least love the idea of the illusion of control, right? You want to feel like you're in control, but you can't control the outcome, the results, any more than a seed can control when exactly it's going to burst and turn into a tree. You have to surrender to the process. The only thing that you can really control is your input. It's the amount of work that you are willing to do. You can only control how you're willing to show up, how often you're willing to show up for yourself, for the thing that you're committed to. You're not in control of the whole process. You're in control of the role that you play and how you choose to show up. And that is not a bad thing. That is not necessarily a bad thing. And it feels scary because it is the unknown. When you don't know what is going to happen, we get very antsy, we get very anxious because the unknown is scary. You don't know what's going to happen. That's because you're thinking of the unknown and you're imagining the worst case scenarios happening, right? Usually that's where the anxiety is coming from. But in the unknown, there are also good things. Like, you think a bad thing can happen, but when you don't know what's going to happen, then it means a good thing can also happen. The unknown also carries with it positive possibilities, and it can be really scary. You can be really scared, but always remember that the unknown carries what you want, and it even carries what you don't even know that you want, what you couldn't have even known to ask for. That is one of the big things about trust. If you trust that something bigger than you is in control of whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you want to get, we as human beings, like you as a person, you're limited in your own understanding, in what you're able to see, right? So being very, very strict about what exactly you want to see can be limiting in and of itself. You have to open yourself up to the fact that what you're asking for is really, the bounds of what you think can happen, but unimaginable goodness can also happen, right? So you have to leave yourself open for a miracle, a little mystery of something that you're not even expecting. You're putting in all the work, but don't limit your own imagination. Ask for what you want, pray for what you want, work towards what you want, but don't be so desperate to be in control that you set limitations on what exactly you're going to receive or what you're willing to receive. Does that make sense? And the third thing is, when you are in the beginning process, and nothing that is calling to you is giving you the opportunity to understand yourself. Sometimes when we are embarking on something, at the beginning of something, there's a looming sense of, I'm worried that nobody's going to get me, nobody's going to get what I'm doing. doing. No one else sees the vision. And maybe even outside of the vision, like in life, I sometimes feel that like nobody gets me, nobody really understands, like my wants, my desires, but like the things that I like, the things that I vibe with. But when you're on a personal growth journey or on a journey to do something else, something like more practical in life, there's a deep need to be understood, right? For someone else to get what exactly you're doing, so you really feel supported. And we don't all get that. Everyone doesn't get that, at least not off the bat, not immediately. Most people in life wait for other people to call something cool or for other people to accept something before they can accept it themselves. So if you're going out in the world waiting to prove yourself to everyone or waiting for everyone to understand you, you're going to be waiting for a really, really long time. So when you're unsure about something and you feel like no one is going to understand it, that is an opportunity for you to lean into the fact that you understand it, you get it, right? And as long as you get it, no one else really has to get it. I heard someone say one time that you're on the right path when there's no path. The path doesn't really exist until you start walking. You have to walk a little bit and then the path appears, and then you walk a little bit more and then the path appears. The path isn't always laid before you from beginning to end, so you see exactly where you're going from beginning to end. If you're doing something that you've never done before, it's going to feel that way. It's going to feel that way a little, and you have to be willing to, take the courage and constantly remind yourself that the path will show up if you take a leap. As a huge romance content consumer, right? I've been consuming like romantic content all my life. I think we get into this mindset of someone else coming to understand you and finally getting you, and like your existence finally like means something is valid because someone gets me. And it's a romantic notion and it's not an impossibility. I have friends that get me a little bit, but you're almost never going to be 100% understood by any single person, and that's okay. In order for anyone else to understand you, you have to give yourself that understanding first. You have to give that gift to yourself. No one else gets it, but you get it, right? So like I for example, I don't spend my time trying to explain why something is my favorite thing, why, I like doing certain things. They're just the things that I like to do and I like to do them. I have gotten past the point of wanting to explain why something else should be important to someone, for it to be important to me, because you'll be waiting a long time if you want that to happen. So if you're setting out to do something that you haven't done before, you're going to have to learn to love your quirks. They're yours. They're not things that you should be so desperate to get rid of. You should love the things that you create because you created them, because they came from you, and all the ways that you naturally express yourself. Don't wait for someone else to see it as worthy or as good before you give yourself permission to see it that way. Allow yourself to accept it first, right? So you have to self-acceptance. You have to give yourself the gift of self-acceptance first. And ironically, when you start seeing things that way, when you start accepting yourself, other people will start seeing it too. You naturally start attracting your own kind of people who will quote unquote get you. And back to the planted seed metaphor. When the seed is planted in the ground, it is dark, it is scary, it doesn't know what's going to happen. The person who planted it, right, the planter doesn't go in every day to dig open the earth and see is it growing. If you check in every day, open the soil, check in every day to see, is the seed growing, is it growing? It's never going to grow. You're going to ruin the process, right? You plant it, you do what you can, you water it every day, you give it what you're supposed to give it, give it the time, give it its nutrients, you water it little by little, it will start breaking. And I'm sure, I don't know how sentient seeds are, but let's run with this metaphor, right, as it relates to us. Say you're the seed and you're planted. In order for the seed to start sprouting, to start growing, to start developing roots that grow into the soil, first it has to break open, right? It'll be really, really dried, and then it'll crack open, and then from within its shell, it'll start growing roots, right? And it doesn't grow up first. Anything that is planted grows its roots first. So on the surface, it may seem like nothing is happening because the roots are underground. So it only seems that way. It doesn't mean anything isn't happening. It just means you can't see it because it's taking roots. And if the roots don't go deep, if it doesn't grow its roots deep enough, whatever sprouts won't last because it will be easily rooted up. So the amount of time it takes for every seed to plant its own roots, to take its own roots in the soil, is necessary for that seed. I'm sure like the biggest trees often have the deepest roots, right? Because in order for the tree to grow and stand as tall as it does and be as sturdy as it is, it needs a very, very deeply rooted system. So perhaps the reason why it's taking you so long is because your roots have to run deep. It takes a lot of time, but your life isn't just the beginning process and then the end, the results. Your life is the in-between. So if you spend most of the in-between being frustrated because you're waiting to see the end result before you enjoy your life, you're going to have only a handful of happy days by the time you get to the end of your life, whatever amount of time, like we're all gifted. Yes, trust the process. It's a cliche, but it is a cliche that rings true. I'm saying this to you. I'm very, 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 very much on the receiving end. I'm very grateful for how often I've been getting the reminder of this recently, because I have really, really, really needed to hear it. I've been journaling about it a lot. I've been, wrapping myself around like these very thoughts because they have been really, really helpful. It can be really frustrating when you're putting in energy towards something or you're putting out so much goodwill, but it doesn't seem like you're getting anything back. It doesn't mean nothing is happening. Trust me, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. The idea of an overnight success is an overrated one. Many people who get their successes overnight do not have it last, or it comes and they don't have the character to hang on to it. And that's not to berate anybody. We're all on our own different journeys, but you have to embrace your own journey for what it is. See what you can tweak here and there, but don't throw your entire journey away because it doesn't look like someone else's, because your fruits don't look like someone else's, because your results aren't coming as fast as someone else's. I hope you found this helpful. Yeah. So trust the process is the point of all of this. You are becoming something beautiful. You're becoming something grand, something great. And it doesn't have to be like the greatest thing in the world. It only has to be great to you. I know sometimes we have this like delusions of grandeur where we think like our lives are going to become this explosively beautiful things when we finally get what we want, when we finally become whoever it is that we think we have to be in our head in order to be insanely happy. But I can't tell you the amount of times like I've spoken to or heard someone who has finally gotten what they wanted to get, and then they look back and they almost all say that after getting the thing that they wanted, their lives didn't really change in the way that I guess they thought it would when they finally get the thing, because whether you get the thing or you don't get the thing, you are going to be stuck with yourself. You're going to carry whatever version of you that you have right now into the same situation when you get the thing. So who you are becoming is a lot more important than what you're going to get. Yeah, I've gotten to the end of my spiel. Let me know if you found this helpful in the comment section, and I will talk to you later in my other video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.